call this meeting to order. Happy August, everybody. Before we call roll, I'd ask everybody to please turn your cell phones to vibrate or silent so we don't have any of those interruptions during our very serious council meeting. Mrs. Rose, if you'll please call the roll.
Councilmember Steve Rice.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector. Here. Councilmember Joe Kuczynski.
Here.
Vice Mayor Diane McMahon. Here. Mayor and Chair Mike Wasserman.
Here. Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask the Los Gatos Community Foundation to join me at the mic in front. Looks like somebody's out of uniform here. Hiding in the back. Joining us tonight for the Pledge of Allegiance are the leadership and membership of the Los Gatos Community Foundation. I'd be surprised if the audience in the chamber or at home hadn't heard of the Community Foundation before, or at least of some of its many philanthropic and community-minded activities. Having been established nearly 20 years ago by 3 former Los Gatos Parks commissioners, it's not surprising that many of the Foundation's efforts are focused on amenities for our parks, such as the Oak Meadow Park Bandstand, for which the Foundation raised over $300,000. Want to get back here? Come on, hurry up. Just for those of you out there in the public, Los Gatos Town Council meetings always start at exactly 7 o'clock. Activities in our parks, such as the annual holiday tree lighting, which the Foundation sponsors every year. When I read the commendation, you'll hear about many more amenities and events in Los Gatos, made possible by the generosity and the extraordinary fundraising capacity of the Community Foundation. These 25 or so people contribute enormously to the well-being of and the quality of life in Los Gatos, and it's my great pleasure to commend them publicly before the community they obviously love. Let's give them a round of applause before the pledge. President Emmett, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Let me give you this microphone here. You start us off. Everyone, please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's all right. You're the president. You can do that. All right. What I have here is a commendation from the town of Los Gatos, signed by the entire town council, as a symbol, a token of our appreciation for the Community Foundation. If you'll join me up here, I'd like to read it to you. Whereas the Los Gatos Community Foundation, Incorporated, was established in 1990 by 3 former Los Gatos Parks commissioners and is comprised of 17 board and 7 emeritus members. And whereas the Foundation is committed to supporting, strengthening, and enriching the quality of life of the Los Gatos community by initiating projects such as the Oak Meadow Park Bandstand featuring the Linden Carriage House Cupola, the Los Gatos High School Community Aquatic Complex, and the renovation of Delgados Park with new playground equipment and landscaping. And whereas the Foundation has also supported the community through partnering on Project Cornerstone, operating the food booth at the annual holiday tree lighting, providing a fire engine ride for youngsters in the Children's Holiday Parade, supporting food booths for the 4th of July celebration, annually planting bulbs around town, as well as maintenance of planter boxes in the downtown, and annually presenting a Thumbs Up Award in recognition of an unusual and outstanding contribution of one of the citizens of Los Gatos who exemplifies the Foundation's goals and vision. And whereas the Foundation's fundraising accomplishments include raising over $300,000 to build the Linden Bandstand in Oak Meadow Park, relighting of the Town Plaza holiday tree with LED lights, through the Buck a Bulb campaign, raising over another $100,000 through the annual Cotillion Gala to provide community involvement scholarships to graduating seniors at Westmont Lee and Los Gatos high schools, and issuing grants to many nonprofit organizations that directly benefit the Los Gatos community. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby commend and congratulate the Los Gatos Community Foundation for its tireless service and contributions to the community and residents of Los Gatos over the last 19 years. One more round of applause, please. She was. And I just learned that Emma was one of those founding members.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Emma.
I'd just like to say thank you very much to Mayor Wasserman and to the council, and thank you all of you, and we hope to have your support for our continuing projects. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go anywhere, if you'll each please shake the council members' hands, and I also have pins from the Town of Los Gatos for each of your members. Thank you. Christine Kennedy. All right, you're milking it here. Let's go. You bet. Let's see you go. Take care. All right, now I'd like to invite Christine Kennedy to join me at the podium, please. Do we have? What's that? You're subbing in for Chris? All right. All right, we have Mary Ann McKaysey Hamilton subbing in for Christine Kennedy. Christine Kennedy is a Boston Marathon winner. Now let's pretend we have Christine Kennedy here, all right? Christine is yet another example of the extraordinary athletic achievement of Los Gatans. Bikers, swimmers, rowers, equestrians, just to name a few. Does this community excel in sports or what? Huh? And now we're honoring Christine, a local runner, who is ranked number 2 in the Masters Women Age Group by Running Times magazine. As I read her commendation, you'll see that Christine has run many, many miles since she began her running career 27 years ago. It's a good thing she's a co-owner of our local landmark, Athletic Performance, on Main Street, because I bet she goes through a lot of running shoes. And here's the commendation, also signed by the entire Town Council, to Christine. Whereas Christine Kennedy, a resident of Los Gatos and co-owner of Athletic Performance running stores in Los Gatos and Willow Glen, began her successful running career in 1982 at the age of 27, when she was inspired by watching a mother of 2 win the Dublin Marathon. This is important that all of you out there and in here hear about this Christine lady, whether or not she was happened to have something come up late and couldn't make tonight. Whereas Christine completed her first marathon that same year, including an entry in the Dublin Marathon, which she eventually went on to win in back-to-back years, 1990 and 91. Whereas Christine logged impressive wins at the beginning of her career, including the 1989 Berlin Marathon, the 1990 Irish National Cross Country Championship, the 1991 Irish National Championship, the 2002 Chicago Marathon Masters Division. And whereas, after recovering from 2 herniated discs in 2004, wow, Christine went on to become the 4-time Women's Masters champion in the Big Sur Half Marathon from 2005 through 2008, and to capture crowns in the U.S. Masters Marathon Championship 2006 and 8, and in the U.S. Masters 10-kilometer 2008 championships. That was all after the 2 herniated discs. Whereas, most notably, Christine posted the fastest time of any woman Masters runner at the 2007 Chicago Marathon, won her division at the 2009 Boston Marathon, and is ranked number 2 in the Masters Women's 50 to 54 age group. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby render with special appreciation and commendation to Christine Kennedy for her dedication to and exemplary achievements in long-distance and marathon racing competition and representing Los Gatos so well. Please tell Christine thank you very much.
On behalf of Christine, thank you all. She had a confusion with her scheduling, and she thought that this town council meeting was Wednesday evening. She got planning and council mixed up. So she was over at the other World Brand store this evening working and was devastated that she's missing this. But I wore my Iron Man shirt in her honor. This is as close as I'll ever get to an Iron Man because I was in Nice when it happened.
And please tell Christine she can watch her presentation on also on the town's website, on video streaming and archives. Thank you very much. All right, our third. Thank you. Now I'd like to ask Vince Connor to come forward.
Could I ask the rest of my team?
Absolutely, please.
We have two residents who are part of my team from Los Gatos. Melissa is from the county. She is our partner, and Jim Meadows is our local census office manager.
People over on this side. Just right out.
And Lucia and Sylvia, they live in Los Gatos, and they're part of my outreach team.
Wonderful. We did meet. You were at my house. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. All right. As I said, we've brought up Vince Connor with the U.S. Census Bureau and his team to join me at the podium. And you named your colleagues already, so we have that covered. And the two Los Gatos residents, you've covered that. Took care of half my business here. I'm going to read the proclamation to you, Mr. Connor, and then you'll give a brief PowerPoint, I understand, presentation, letting the community know about the importance of participating in the upcoming census. A lot of people just think, oh, we're taking another census, but census numbers are very important. Not only providing information for the town, but they're also directly related to funding that comes to a city based on its population, demographics, etc. So, Mr. Connor, if you'll step up here, I'll read this to you. Whereas an accurate census count is vital to Los Gatos and our residents' quality of life by helping the town government identify demographic trends that affect land use, public infrastructure, social service, recreational, business, and housing needs of the local community. And whereas more than $300 billion with a B per year in federal and state funding is allocated to states, counties, and communities based on the census data. Whereas census data ensure fair congressional representation by determining how many seats California will have in the U.S. House of Representatives, as well as the redistricting of California's state legislature, Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and voting districts. And whereas the 2010 census creates employment opportunities in Los Gatos, as local residents are hired to assist with data collection. And whereas the information collected by the census is protected by law and remains confidential for 72 years. All right, 72 years. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Mike Wasserman, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the town of Los Gatos, do deem it appropriate and do hereby proclaim the town of Los Gatos as committed to partnering with the U.S. Census Bureau to help ensure a full and accurate count in 2010.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I hope you folks will hang around for a very brief presentation because I think it's important.
Thank you. The presentation will also be shown on KCAT Live. Thank you very much, and we can do that now. All right? Thank you. Thank you. Good seeing you again, too. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, no. Well, we had that conversation.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much for this opportunity to Mayor and the council members and citizens and residents of Los Gatos. Oh, thank you.
And Mr. Connor, you can pull that microphone out if you need to turn and face the screen.
Okay.
You can pull it out. There you go.
Thank you. Census has two major components to it. One is the operations side, which Jim represents, and the other one is the outreach side, which is basically getting the community to participate as volunteers in building the awareness of it. The third critical part of which you are a part, and Melissa Erickson from County is a part, is our partners. Right, but? Okay, thank you. So So I have a relatively small team. I have a team of about 20 people with 6 partnership specialists and partnership assistants. And we have responsibility for Santa Clara County and the Santa Cruz County. So the only way we can reach and get the word out to the community is through strong partnerships, of which there are community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and government agencies. So we hope to establish a very strong relationship with Los Gatos for a full and a complete count for your city or your township. Okay. There are 2 main objectives of the outreach. One is to increase the mail response rate, and the other one is to decrease or reduce the undercount, and these 2 definitions will become clear as we move further on. And I wanted to put the slide up front to get the importance to all the residents that of 29,000 or 30,000 odd residents and about 14 or 12,000 households, if there was an undercount of just 10 households, what would be the impact of that? So the occupancy rate in your township is about 2.4, so sorry for using that figure. And if there were 10 households, there was a study done by Brookings Institute that said for 2007, though the study is recent, it's looking at the 2007 data, that for each person in the county, it would, in California, the impact was $1,145. So if you look at just undercounting 10 households, the impact is $29,000 a year and $290,000 over 10 years. And so you can see that the impact can be very significant if I just put another 0 in front of instead of 10. Okay. Just wanted to give you a quick update on what the process is. That in middle of March starting with March, we have a major campaign where we send a letter to every household in the country, 140 million households. And then at the beginning of the March, from March 15th to 17th, the actual questionnaire goes out. And then we send a reminder postcard in the 3rd week of March, and for those people who have not responded, we send them a second questionnaire. And if we have not, by the late part of April, we have an exact information of people who have not responded, because we can tabulate the information very, very quickly. And then we start knocking on doors trying to get the information. So the best thing for everyone is to just fill out the questionnaires and avoid from people knocking on the doors. Now, if I look at some of the information from the past census, the response rate in Santa Clara County was 70%. The response rate in Los Gatos was excellent. It was 83%. But it still means that there were more than 2,000 households that we had to knock on doors to get the information, and I'm sure that there were some people that we weren't able to collect the information from. So I would, even though your response rate was excellent, I still would urge everyone to increase the response rate to even, perhaps let's get it up to 90%, and let's eliminate any undercount, because you see the major impact of that. There's often a confusion as to who is counted. And I'm a first-generation American, and when I ask my friends about census, hardly anyone knows about it. And those who know are often confused and saying, I'm not a citizen as yet, so I'm not counted, which is not true. Every living person in the United States has to be counted. The federal funds allocation is based on that for each and every resident. So the challenge for your township is that about 10% of the population is Asian. 20% of the population doesn't have, speaks language other than English at home, and this is the profile of the people, the first generation citizens or residents who mostly tend to be undercounted. So here are some other examples. Recent immigrants, extended family members. So, within my community, which is South Asian, I live in Saratoga, there are lots of people who have their aunts over, their parents over, and they're often here on a very extended stay, and those people need to be counted. And people are not aware of that, so we need to build the awareness of that. How many of you, a lot of you know about the H-1B workers in the Silicon Valley. These are the professionals who live here on an extended basis, and most of them are technologists and they work for high-tech companies. They need to be counted, and students and everyone needs to be counted. So here are 3 points that it's important, easy, and it's safe. And I'll give you some example. We have already talked about the funding. And the thing is that an ordinary citizen can't relate to that, but when you talk about the funding for schools, senior citizen centers, the roads, the health services, there is a closer relationship and a greater appreciation. In census this time, it's only a short form. There are 10 questions which can be easily filled out in less than 10 minutes. And it's safe. This is the very, very important part, especially for those people whose visas may have expired, so on and so forth, that on census we don't ask any questions about the citizenship, and any and all personal information is protected by Title 13, which means no court in the country or no government agency can ask the individual information to be revealed. So people should feel very comfortable and safe about that. Now, we would call upon people to form some kind of a committee to kind of get the word out. I'm sorry, you're looking at your watch. And so we have a lot of resources at the census that we can extend to your city, but it's up to your city and the volunteers to form a group to get the word out. And we are here to help, and the county is here to help. So mostly it is from now through December, it is building the awareness, and then in January and February, really, the community foundation out here, the Los Gatos Community Foundation, should be volunteering and really sending the word out to individual households, encouraging them that it's absolutely safe and they should willingly, voluntarily give out that information. And my name is there. Melissa Erickson is the project manager from Santa Clara. Ray Mueller, on my team, who's assigned to your team, to your township, is out of town today, so I'm filling in for Ray. Very simple questions, the 10 questions which are on the questionnaire, and the fact that it is safe and secure. So, thank you very much. Sorry if I've gone over time.
No, I understand that. Thank you, Mr. Khanna, and thank you for bringing up the point how important this is, and when people understand that importance and how it relates to them. You mentioned parks and streets and funding such as that. I think that's important to do. I was glad to hear Los Gatos is 83%, which I'm sure is an exceptionally high number, but I agree with you. Let's shoot for 90%, and thank you for raising our awareness. Appreciate that. And thank you, too, for the entire staff there helping out. Los Gatos will certainly do its very best to cooperate. Thank you. Now, Mr. Korb, I'll turn to you for our closed session report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. The town council did meet in closed session tonight on 2 separate items. The first was a conference with its real property negotiator concerning 930 University Avenue that the town is discussing with Verizon, the owner of the property. The second was a conference with its negotiator concerning 2 sites, 123 East Main Street and 208 East Main Street, which are being discussed with the Los Gatos Saratoga Community Education and Recreation District. In both cases, no reportable actions were taken. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Korb. Appreciate that. Now to council matters. I'll turn to council first to see if we have any matters to bring up tonight. Our first meeting back from recess. Seeing none, turn to manager matters. Mr. Larson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I do have several items to report, given the recess the council is just returning from. First, at your last meeting prior to the recess at the end of June, we reported then that our police department had been recognized for its successful, for the investigation of the Akili murder case. We've just received notice of additional recognition that the police department has received, and that's from the International Association of Police Chiefs. And again, this is for the Excellence in Criminal Investigation Award, which is an international competition. There were 150 applicants, and we are one of 15 finalists competing with 3 organizations from other countries, including Canada and South Korea, competing with the Secret Service and other large cities like Baltimore, Boston, Phoenix, and St. Louis. The final 3 recipients will be announced in October, and while we have been informed we are not one of those 3, we are exceptionally honored to have the recognition to be in the top 15 finalists for the work of our police department. Another issue that carried forward from June is great news to report as well. And today the town is announcing that we have purchased 224 West Main. It is a current mixed-use structure at the northeast corner of Main Street and Linden in downtown Los Gatos. It is a quarter-acre property with a 2,900 square foot building that the town has acquired and will be using for increased parking downtown for the next several years, and then utilizing that property with our adjacent parking lot for a mixed-use development to expand commercial, residential, and parking opportunities in downtown. It is staff's belief that this is probably the first expansion of parking in downtown Los Gatos in a decade, and with your support and direction, we've been able to close on that property and are working with the tenants of the one remaining apartment to achieve complete access to the property for its eventual redevelopment. So that's great news on behalf of the town of Los Gatos. More problematic news is Music in the Park this past Sunday. We had ordered on behalf of the Arts Commission 7 porta-potties, only 3 of which showed up from our vendor. And I just wanted to share with you an email we received today from our vendor. This is from the territory manager of the firm that provides porta-potties. I'm truly embarrassed and sorry for the issues that you all experienced during your Music in the Park concert. What should have been a fun and relaxing day at the park turned into a very stressful ordeal for everyone. We take full responsibility for the poor performance and will not let this happen again. We will be delivering our premium solar-powered units this weekend at no additional cost. I know that we can't change what happened on Sunday, but I can assure you that our team will work very hard to earn back your respect. And this last Sunday with the Beach Boys tribute band was arguably the largest turnout we've ever had at Music in the Park, so it was a tough time to have the fewest number of facilities, but we're exceptionally pleased with the prompt response from our vendor to ensure that that problem will not recur. Equally problematic looking ahead is news we've just received from the Valley Transportation Authority. Given the fiscal crisis that's facing all government, VTA has announced a number of reductions in bus services as well as the discontinuation of Line 76, which largely serves the mountain communities and in particular those students who go to Los Gatos High School. This route is proposed for discontinuation, which had been recommended several years ago. And due to public response, that line was restored, and we did want to alert the council and the community that there will be a public hearing on August 10th in the city of Campbell at 7 p.m. in their community center for the public and riders to give feedback on that potential discontinuation of Route 76 as well as the reduction in other services. Last, looking ahead, this Saturday is a big start in August for this community. We will start off with the General Plan Community Forum from 10 to 12 here at the Neighborhood Center. Actually, the day starts even earlier than that with the annual Gamut Run, going from 8:30 to 10. Then the Los Gatos General Plan Community Forum from 10 to noon, followed by our third of the 3 summer second Saturdays, where we're encouraging residents and visitors from the rest of the valley to shop at all of the fine establishments in Los Gatos, downtown, the Boulevard, and our neighborhood centers. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. And just to give a quick recap, the porta potties that were provided by another vendor, that came up short, as many people are aware of, and the VTA is having issues that they're trying to resolve in their own way. But as far as the 3 items mentioned, well, I don't want to take part credit, but 83% census turnout was really spectacular. But the 2 items mentioned, Mr. Larson just mentioned, that were town-related, that the town's in charge of. Mr. Larson, I heard you say the town is increasing downtown parking for the first time in a decade, or you could say the first time this century, make it look as nice as possible. And Mr. Brzezinski saying, no, not quite, because we added parking spaces here and parking spaces there.
And also lot 4.
And lot 4.
Yeah.
But we did increase downtown parking. But what I want to bring special attention to, that you mentioned in the beginning, was that our police department, for its investigation in the Akiri case, was named as one of the 15 or top 20?
15 finalists internationally.
In the world. In the world. And I loved hearing how we were competing with the Secret Service. This is wonderful. Anyway, thank you very much for that report. All right, now we're dealing with the consent items on tonight's agenda. And before I look to the public for items they want to pull, I'll turn to council first. Councilmember Rice.
I'd like to pull item 3, please.
Number 3. Anybody else from council? Seeing none from council, I'll look to the public, and I have a card here from Citizen A. Already mentioned number 3, also mentioned number 10. So we have 3 and 10 pulled, and I'll look to council now for an action on the remaining consent items. Mr. Brzezinski.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda excluding items 3 and 10.
Thank you. Motion made. Have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, motion made to pass consent items excluding 3 and 10. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It passes unanimously. Now we're going to deal with 3 and 10. And Mr. Rice, we'll start off with you. I like that idea better. We'll start off with the public. Citizen Ray, will you please speak on item number 3? It's on your speaker card. And Mr. Mike Milkey, do I have that correct? Mike Milkey, there you are. You'll follow Citizen Ray.
Are you changing your procedure? Are you hearing it now or later?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I'm hearing it now rather than later. Which is my prerogative. That's true. Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski.
Well, first thing I gotta say, I gotta address Mr. Rice up there. Man, what a good-looking new look, okay? I know when he ran for election, he brought his grandpa record into it. And why not show a little grandpa look? Why not? Okay. Number 3. About the Bay Area Climate Collaborative. I want to tell you, I'm so overjoyed with this. You know, we've got this Silicon Valley leadership group that, in my opinion, has been just a glorified Chamber of Commerce. Okay? But this approach is, in my view, totally 100% public interest first. Public interest first. The dollar bill later. It's a wonderful opportunity for the South Bay and the governments thereof to join in and get something done on climate change. And I want to tell you, I want to give you the first project as far as I'm concerned. We've just become aware how obnoxious the cement plant in Cupertino is to Los Gatos. I've been here 10 years, and I've always had a nasal problem, an eye problem, always fitted with the automobiles. Hey, the automobiles are all gone. You look to the hills to the east, there's nothing anymore, no more dirty brown. All requires all catalytic, all converters, and it's made a tremendous change. And yet my eyes are still going crazy in a given moment, and I can't breathe. In my apartment, I go outside, I go for a drive, I end up on 280 opposite the cement plant in the Cupertino foothills at the end of Stevens Creek Boulevard. When I get past that point, heading upwind, everything stops. My eyes get normal, my nose stops killing me. And what I have found out, courtesy of the local news and others, is that project dumps over 1 million tons of obnoxious gas from coal. They burn coal in these rotary kilns to cook the limestone. And it's dumped raw with all its poisons right into the air. And the winds blow from the northwest prevailingly, okay? Right down through Cupertino, right down through Saratoga, and then correct here in Los Gatos.
I'll turn my microphone on. Thank you very much. Your time's up. You know the rules. We've done it a lot. Don't go on. If you're warning, we're wrapping up. That's a rule. No, because it's all the time. Why was it interim when it's going on? That's the warning, Ray. I give up. I quit. Okay, we accept that. Next, Mr. Mike Milkey.
Thank you. I appreciate a chance to address this body. I'm with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, the aforementioned organization, and we work closely with a number of entities across the Bay Area to develop the Bay Area Climate Collaborative, specifically the goals. And I know some are concerned about AB 32 and moving forward with implementation, but of course, the leadership group and its members fully support moving forward on AB 32. We think we have to do something now about climate change and also at the same time further foster our clean and green tech, which is the heart of it is here in Silicon Valley. So we think this is good for the environment and good for jobs as well. And frankly, the most expensive thing that we can do at this point in time is to do nothing. We're already feeling the effects of climate change, and further climate change is going to threaten the state's economy in terms of agriculture, entertainment, tourism, you name the sectors. And Scott Haug, president of the Small Business California, recently came out in favor of moving forward on AB 32. What's missing, frankly, from these state-level efforts are actionable areas for municipalities and businesses to engage and define how they're going to move forward and meet the state's goals under AB 32. And that's what we think we've done very effectively and in a collaborative fashion through the compact and through the whole collaborative process. And we would like to urge you to support this and to join the fellow municipalities, Saratoga, Mountain View, the County of Santa Clara, Oakland, San Jose, San Francisco, and a whole host of others that are in line taking this through right now, and join us in the collaborative and do something good for this city and good for the state at the same time. Thanks.
Thanks. If you remain there, please, Mr. Milkey. Any questions? Mr. Rice.
Mr. Milkey, thank you for being here. Are you familiar with the study that came out of Cal State Sacramento earlier in July?
Earlier this last month. No, not
last month. Okay, then I'll hold my comments on it until then.
Okay, thank you.
I am aware of a host of other reports that talk to the fact that AB 32 can actually promote jobs.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gardino, also on item number 3.
Wasserman, members of the council. My name is Carl Guardino. I'm CEO of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. I'm also a resident of the town of Los Gatos, 489 Bird Avenue. It's an honor, as always, to be here this evening, and thank you for considering joining the Bay Area Climate Collaborative. It is an 18-month work that we released last March at a signing ceremony with the mayors of the 3 largest cities in the region and numerous mayors and council members from other parts of the region, along with the California League of Conservation Voters, the Environmental Defense, as well as the Bay Area Council, Joint Venture Silicon Valley, and others. Why? The leadership group, as you know, is composed of 305 CEOs from employers large and small throughout the valley, primarily high-tech and biotech companies, primarily scientists and engineers who, when they see a problem, want to fix it. And when they see a problem of this scale, as scientists and engineers are motivated even more to find solutions that work and are good for both our environment and good for our economy. And that is why we are taking this on. Climate change is a global challenge, disputed by very few scientists around the globe today. But we know that even with a global challenge, we need regional solutions, because global change doesn't happen all at once globally. It happens when impacted and concerned communities, citizens, and companies band together with solutions. And that's where the Bay Area Climate Change Collaborative is 10 actionable steps that we can take voluntarily as a region to meet the ambitious but equally important goals of Assembly Bill 32, the California Global Warming Solutions Act. We encourage you, we actually urge you to join us tonight. And if there are studies that people are going to cite after we sit down, respectfully, we ask that we cite them, that they be cited while we're still at the mic, so that we can address them together, not when we're sitting down and unable to respond, and ask that you would move forward this evening. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Guardino, are you able to answer Councilmember Rice's previous question about the survey last month?
I don't even know what survey he's referring to, so I would be happy to hear it, and then with Mike and I discuss it, and we're happy to bring up the reams of data about climate change, the work that we have been doing on AB 32 and regional action plans.
Okay, thank you. We'll see how we proceed.
Great.
Thank you. Public portion for item number 3 is now closed, and we'll turn to council. We'll start off with Councilmember Rice.
Thank you, Mayor Wasserman. To avoid what I hope could be a protracted conversation, my concerns here are not about global warming, climate change, or whether it's real, unreal, studies of whether it's happening or not. My concern is primarily fiscal. Our report on, if I get back to the page, the bottom of page 2 says the fiscal impact, that there is no fiscal impact to the town to become a member of the Bay Area Climate Collaborative or to sign the Bay Area Climate Change Compact. But as I read through the action plan, there are some items there that lead me to question whether there would be, in fact, no costs to the town. So when you see action area goals of increasing the number of zero-emission and other ultra-low emission light-duty vehicles to 10% of the municipal fleets by the end of 2013 and 25% by the end of 2018, those vehicles cost more than the same vehicle without hybrid or low emissions. So my only concern here, or my primary concern here, is around the cost to the town and to the residents of the town for adopting this at this point in time. The study to which I was referring earlier is one that concerns me from a town perspective for residents. This came out of the California State University in Sacramento, July 13th, so it was after I believe this was all prepared for us. It was an analysis of AB 32, which was passed 3 years ago in a very different economic climate. The study was done by Sanjay Varshni, I hope I pronounced that right, Dean of the College of Business Administration at CSU Sacramento, and Dennis H. Tutilian, PhD, Professor of Marketing. The study again, it was just released last month, says that when the plan is fully implemented, AB 32, it will result in costs to the average California family of $3,857. Consumers will be forced to cut discretionary spending by 26.2%, and that small businesses in California will pay an additional roughly $50,000 as a result of California Air Resources Board implementation of AB 32. I don't know if this is right or wrong, and I want to make that very, very clear. I don't know if these numbers are good, bad, or indifferent. My concern is passing something without knowing whether it's going to cost our residents and our town. We've cut hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from our budget, and before we make decisions that will entail us to spend something that we don't have, or, for that matter, to sign on to something that we then may be legitimately charged with hypocrisy for not endorsing, that's where my concern is.
Fair enough. Let's look to Town Manager Mr. Larson for a response to some of the issues Councilman Rice raised.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Rice, the study you raised was very informative. I did have a chance to look at it this afternoon after you highlighted it for me. I did want to clarify in reading the body of the report, it refers to the recommendations of the California Air Resources Board on how they hope to implement AB 32, not to AB 32 directly, and it isn't encompassed in terms of CARB's actions by the SBLG report, if I read it correctly. However, your report does bring up concerns about cost to the town for implementing any of the action plans. What we found encouraging by the SBLG recommendation was that the 10 action items are actually being applied to the 3 largest cities, and those will serve as models and opportunities for the rest of us to learn what they've gained from their early leadership given their scale on these issues. So I'm actually hopeful that what has happened in our past environmental efforts, that as we're part of a regional approach rather than a solo approach, we'll do it smarter, better, cheaper, and quicker than we would trying to respond by ourselves. And I'm heartened that it's the leadership group, the Bay Area Council, and joint venture Silicon Valley, with the primary sponsors being Bank of America and PG&E, that are supporting the collaborative to make sure that we're keeping cost efficiency and effectiveness uppermost. And I think that's something that has to be top of our agenda in these budget times, as we all well know. I should highlight for the council what our next steps would be should you adopt this. And that's really no different than what they would be if you didn't adopt it. And that your council has already directed us to update the general plan with a focus on environmental sustainability. We think our efforts on climate change will fold right into that discussion and is work that we're required to do anyway by AB 32 and the Attorney General's opinion, independent of what CARB, the California Air Resources Board, is directing. And we think this could actually ease our process as we update the general plan to draw on the lessons from other private and public sector organizations in the compact.
Okay, so thank you. And Councilman Rice, before I turn back to you, I just want to make sure, as I read this, I saw it as goals and targets for those 3 cities, and it sounded like we were going to be looking and watching, observing what was going on there while we're doing our own environmental planning with the general plan, and then a regional approach would be considered. And is it your opinion, Mr. Larson, as far as what's before us tonight, is we're being asked to join this effort, but not committing to a cost of any type?
There is no cost I can identify yet from joining this effort. I do believe, as with recycling, as with water conservation, as with energy efficiency, there may be some upfront costs the town will have to consider in the years ahead. I think it's developing our climate action plan that will provide that path. What gets us the most bang for the buck in what we bring back to you, using the lessons learned from other jurisdictions. And that's what we hope will happen. I think I'm going to be in a cutting mode for at least a couple more years given this economy, and I know this has to fit into that model. Thank you. Mr. Rice.
Well, I don't disagree with the goals. I will say I'm a little leery of the California Resources Board because they're unelected and they have a tendency to make policy that people have to live with whether you like it or not. But when I look, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when I look at the compact, we as signatories recognize the need and so on. Further, and if you look at the bullet points, the very last bullet point says we'll commit leadership resources to work together in order to realize our shared vision. When I see committing resources, leadership or otherwise, to me, putting your money where your mouth is a leadership resource. I'm just... as you said, there's no difference what our next actions are if we sign on or don't sign on. My concern is that if we sign on, we're saying what we're going to do, whereas if we don't sign on, we're not saying we're not interested in doing this. We're just saying we're not ready to put our money behind this until we know where we are from a money perspective. That's my argument with it at this moment.
Council, Mr. Brzezinski.
Mr. Mayor, I do appreciate Councilman Rice's position, and it comes at the same time that this discussion is taking place statewide in our municipalities. We have SB 375, this in front of us, that we haven't even started dialoguing about yet. And the fact that the League of Cities has been a strong supporter of SB 375, in fact, helped to work diligently on the standard to bring it to its final definition. In spite of the fact that we went through that rigorous process, there is still a lot of pushback that's occurring in various places in the state, particularly in Orange County, against anything that's going to cost more money. And I think that we're in a really dynamic time. What I wanted to reinforce in Councilman Rice's position is that when we see the nature of the compact, to me, the words mean what they say. And that is, it's the three major municipalities that this is directed to, and that the experimentation, in fact, will take place in those three municipalities, and will be the beneficiary of the signatories of the compact to learn from both the successes and the failures of those three cities. And I think this will all take place in the context of this evolving economy, that we're not going to be able to spend money on things that we don't have, but there is a time sequence here, I think, that's very important. And what I see is the time sequence allows, over the next couple of years, the next series of years, the opportunity to develop this so that when we are economically more substantive as a state, then we will be shovel ready, in effect, to put this in place. And if we don't analyze this in this context, then we'll lose a number of years in the efforts to achieve the goals. So I think, I definitely feel that it's important for us to sign on tonight and to work with our state partners to make sense of this, and eventually to be able to be successful in its accomplishment.
Thank you. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should first share with the council that I received an email from a woman by the name of Monique Jensen encouraging me to support this agenda item. And Monique was one of the founders of West Valley Greenleaf Committee. And for those of you who may not remember or may not know, West Valley Greenleaf is an organization of residents and business people from Los Gatos, Saratoga, and Montserrat, whose objective was to achieve environmental objectives without costing our municipalities any more money. In fact, its genesis was to have not increase funding burdens to our various municipalities. What I see here in this collaborative is that same approach, same objective, not costing us more money, but still achieving environmental goals. And it does this because it's taking it on a regional perspective. It's going to be developing best practices that can be used by any jurisdiction. It's going to have as an objective the increased green college jobs, which I think is excellent for a whole region, including Los Gatos. It's going to reduce duplicate efforts, which I know from my efforts on this issue are a challenge, and it's going to give us regional access to information. So I see this as a win-win. It's going to give us Los Gatos information, and it is not going to be a money drain for us. And as I said, it's achieving the same objectives that West Valley Greenleaf is trying to achieve from a different direction.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's really wise of Councilmember Rice and all of us to go through each of the documents that are proposed to us in every item of the council meeting and, look through it very, very carefully to see if there's any fiscal impact, because obviously with the state's shenanigans, our situation keeps getting more and more perilous. That being said, I have total confidence that we are not putting ourselves at any financial risk on this. I think, for all the reasons that have already been stated, that it is focused in the specifics on the 3 larger cities, but even if it weren't, those are identified as goals, not mandatory requirements. It's a different thing to have a goal, for example, on solid waste to have a diversion of 75%, rather than mandated 50% or we'll charge you $10,000 a day for every day that you're not in compliance. So a goal is something that you strive towards. It's something that you want to take into account as you make every policy decision, every day-to-day operation decision. So I'm very comfortable with this, and Mayor, if it's all right with you, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the resolution as specified in item number 3.
Second. Made, seconded. Now some discussion. Now I'll discuss a little bit then. I'd like to point out to those here tonight and those watching on TV, I've been on this council for 7 years, and each of us knows if someone has done the homework, read the binder, done the research. And each and every time an issue comes up, even items on consent item, it's not just stamp approval, move on kind of thing. We each read through the details, and occasionally one of us is privileged to find some other report comes out from somewhere else and reads and gets into that. And because of the Brown Act, Councilman Rice can't call me up and call up another person and discuss the issues. That prohibits it. All discussion has to be here. But what I am very, very proud of is the fact that every council member here does their homework and comes here prepared to analyze, evaluate, and discuss each item. For myself, the way I've interpreted this and the conversation I've had and heard from my town manager, I'm in support of this. I think Los Gatos joining this effort is the right thing to do. I like that term green collar that Councilmember Spector just said. That's kind of fun too. And we're all very, very, very fiscally conservative, especially right now, more so than normal because funds are short. So watching what San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco do and what they choose to implement and not, we call that best practices. We look at other communities for a lot of things that we do, and we're going to look to those communities to see what they implement, what steps they take, and then talk with our equivalents over there and say, what worked, what didn't work. And Los Gatos will have the benefit of others putting those practices to use, and we will jump in and participate as we see fit, wherever we can and when we can. But Los Gatos is definitely part of the green movement going on in this area, in this state, and in this country, and that's why I'm supporting this. Any other council discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the recommendation of consent item number 3, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. That passes 4-1. Mrs. Rose?
Mr. Mayor, if I might just add, given the concerns raised by Councilman Rice on the fiscal impacts of this and echoed by the rest of council in your comments, we will return to you with any analysis as we receive it on the fiscal impacts of any specific items that come forward for your future consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. As you heard, we all do share those fiscal concerns. Thank you. All right, we now also have consent item number 10 pulled. It was pulled by Citizen Ray. So Citizen Ray, you've got 3 minutes to address consent item number 10, which I believe is the minutes. If I'm correct here, approved council agency minutes of June 15th. up to 3 minutes. You can't do milk then.
What's it going to be, 3 minutes or up to? Up to. Woo! Oh my gosh. You know, I come down here to discuss the minutes that I'm concerned about because I think they're incorrect. Okay, the ones that I bring up. And I mean, one guy in a town of 30,000 people, it's a homeowner guy. One guy. There are no other homeowner associations that come down and participate in government. One guy. Well, why can't I have my comments be honest, with integrity, in the minutes? Why not? Why can't I have that? And that's why I'm working and will never quit until this woman changes her approach, okay? First off, on the verbal communications, Mr. Davis commented about the corruption at the city of Montesereno. I went into detail about how the mayor got hit by a $200,000 judgment by the court for malice, and that the town of Montesereno was assessed millions of dollars for their participation, wrong participation, okay? And I talked it over with other people in the community. And one of the main comments that came up, and this is the benefit of my bringing it up to you people. Mr. Larson, are you listening, please? Nothing personal, Mr. Larson, but there's a past history before you got here of activity that was less than honest, okay, employees. Okay? And this is what happens when employees get personal. Millions of dollars are assessed in judgment. Okay? So, I just lay it on the table for food for thought. Number 2. Council's discussion expressed concerns that the wildlife urban interface, fire area, etc. Well, it isn't wildlife. It's wild land. Come on. Wild land, not wildlife. There's a hell of a difference in case you don't understand that. Going on to the next one. Mr. Davis commented that he feels the town is robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm talking about the RDA funding. Okay? The RDA program is set up so the downtown...
Thank you very much. You said so the downtown. Please finish that sentence.
Thank you. Well...
No. Don't push. So the downtown...
Yeah, the downtown property owners in Almond Grove are supposed to be benefited by RDA. That money is now being taken away.
Thank you. That was the sentence. Thank you very much for completing your sentence. Mr. Mayor, just a minute, Mr. Larson. Thank you. Thank you very much, Citizen Ray.
Okay.
All right, that's the public speaking on item number 3. Mr. Larson, do you have a comment? Oh, 10.
Item 10, just, we did have some administrative corrections to the minutes that I thought I'd point out. One was the wildland urban interface on page 18, referenced by Mr. Davis. And for item 25, in 3 places on pages 19 to 22, the motion action should be listed as motion failed for lack of a second, to be consistent in all cases.
Thank you very much. Correction so noted. Council, any other conversation? Discussion item number 10. Seeing none, I'll call for a question. All those to approve consent item number 10. So, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve consent item number 10.
I like your motion. The second. Motion made the second.
With the corrections.
With the corrections,
yes.
You're there? No vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes done. Consent items. Okay, now we're on to verbal communications. And I have 3 cards. Citizen Ray. Will be followed by Honorable Marshall Standig. Gotta get that right. And then Ira Kane.
Okay. First off, as I understand the big new air unit for the room here and for the offices has been turned on, and we are now breathing new air. Well, I'm telling you, my familiar and cold in my nose loves the air in here tonight. It loves it. The temperature is just right. I can breathe. My eyes aren't going ring-a-ding-ding. Hooray for Mr. Caposo. He's a new Los Gatos hero. Wow. Really bought himself a brand new shirt. I would too. Okay. And also with Mr. Caposo, he and I have talked recently about public safety issues, and particularly about the school kids. And he is moving now to repaint all the yellow crosswalks, okay, related to the schools. And that prior to school coming up in a month. And that's beautiful. Beautiful. So he's going to be our guy for some time. No question about it. Okay. That's all the good news. Here's some criticism. And with all due respect, Mr. Larson, I know you're smiling, but I got to lay something on you, okay? Mr. Larson is a town manager. I feel like your assumption of the role of a politician when you were never elected is an insult to we, the people of this town. Okay? And as we all know, you don't even live in this town. So when you get up and expound the political viewpoint of the Gang of Five, you're doing a disservice to all of us, because we didn't elect you. We can't do anything about you if we don't like what you say. You are doing an in-run around American democracy by acting as a stooge for Brzezinski, for example. And it's a crying shame, so I would ask you to think about it and see if you can't come up with some different approach, okay? Let's see. And we're going to then goodbye.
You're out of here. All right. Honorable Council Member Ann Standing.
Hold your ground.
And sir, before you speak, welcome to our council chambers. Coming over from Montessori, I appreciate that. And I just wanted to point out to anybody listening, we lucked out with Greg Larson. Greg Larson exemplifies this community. Greg Larson works for the five of us, and I feel very, very accurately conveys these council's wishes in the best interest of Los Gatos. Councilmember, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor Wasserman and members of the council. My name is Marshall Ann Standig, and I live at 16151 Bachman Avenue, which is at the very end of Bachman. It's the last cul-de-sac, which is in Monte Sereno, and I've lived there for almost 11 years in about 28 days. I'm here before you tonight of course, as a private citizen, asking you to consider a matter of public safety, and I'm passing around a map, a Google map of Bachman Avenue at the very end of the street. There are two uncontrolled intersections on Bachman Avenue, and I pass them every day of the year, either by car or on my bike, and bicycle, that is, and numerous residents that live in our cul-de-sac walk up Bachman Avenue, walk up the cul-de-sac to get onto Bachman right at Alexander. And there have been numerous near misses. I can tell you that probably in the course of a month, it's probably 3 days a week, three different times each month, I've almost been hit on my bicycle or by a car because there's no yield or stop sign at those intersections. And the problem that exists is that the cul-de-sac where we are is at the very bottom of Bachman, and Alexander is a big feeder street for all of the residents that live on Alexander and further up into Los Gatos. And they come through down Alexander onto Bachman to race down to Missoula to get over to Highway 9. And it's a very busy intersection in the morning. And furthermore, right on Belmont and Bachman, which is where Bachman Park is, which is a park that, frankly, I love, and I'm glad that both of the towns support it. At that park, there's, and during the school year, there are students that wait for a bus every day. And again, that's very close to that uncontrolled intersection. So I'd ask you to consider, to please seriously consider doing some type of control on those two intersections. Those are the only two intersections on Bachman from Santa Cruz Avenue through the end of the street that are not controlled. And I know nobody likes stop signs and nobody likes to be told to yield, but I hate to say that unfortunately at some point somebody's going to be hit and hurt seriously, and I'd hope you would just take that under your consideration. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We certainly will. Mr. Capurso, can we hear from you as our Director of Parks and Public Works?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nice shirt.
Happy to be here in my new shirt. We did get the comments from the council member regarding these two intersections, and let me first say that it's not uncommon to have completely unregulated intersections in residential neighborhoods. Those exist all throughout the town, but when issues like this are brought to our attention, we do take them very seriously, and we'll examine this from a perspective of both what we consider to be the main street, which is Bachman, as well as from the perspective of the two side streets, Belmont and Alexander. Since we got this request, we were actually alerted to this information in part of last week, I think. I've talked to our traffic engineer, Jesse Pooh, who's taken an initial look at both of the intersections, has yet to make a recommendations, but I can tell you that this is something that we're taking a hard look at. There's certainly some unique circumstances out there, because while you have Bachman as being kind of the main carrier of residential traffic, it does turn into a cul-de-sac at the end, and then you've got the two courts off of it, Alexander Court and Belmont Court as well, that are actually uphill approaches as you get to Bachman. So having driven both of those, I could see how it's wouldn't be uncommon for folks leaving those cul-de-sacs to have to get up a certain amount of momentum to get to the top, and it does tend to carry you through that intersection. So these are both certainly good candidates, and before we move toward any type of action plan, we'll return with recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. And now, before we go to Mr. Ira Kane, did I mention our police department beat out several countries? Mr. Kane.
Yes. Give me time to get up.
Certainly.
Put my bionics together here, since you've got to take care of my cataracts. Council member, my name is Ira Kane. I have handouts of what I'm about to read to you, and at the end, you can have the handout so you don't have to listen if you don't like to. Okay. I'm here tonight to complain about the extreme noise generated by the air conditioner installed on the second floor balcony of my next door neighbor's house at 139 Glen Ridge. If you're not familiar with Glen Ridge, I live in the White House with the lions out front. If you've been up there, that's where I live. Just started 34 years. Previously, 2 external air conditioners units were installed at 139 at the ground level between houses. My wife and I complain almost daily about the high level of noise of the previous owner of 139, who turned them off in 2005. That home remained vacant for 2 years and was sold in 2007. In July 2007, an organization called THIS, T-H-I-S, headed by Mr. T. Jeans, began lengthy renovation of the house at 139 Glenridge. At that time, Mr. Jeans showed up at my front door with renditions of his plans and asked for our signatures, my wife and I. We signed reluctantly on one condition, that the 2 air conditioners that were there would be removed. He swore he would remove those air conditioners and move them to the back of the house and probably inside the house. About 6 months ago, Mr. Jean installed an extremely noisy air conditioner on the open second floor balcony facing my house at 145. We reported the noise by email to Mr. Jeans and to Los Gatos officials on several occasions, about that thick emails. I have copies of the complaints if anybody would like to see a lot of emails about noise. Mr. Jeans' reaction to our complaints was a piece of plexiglass about 3 feet by 4 feet between 139 and 145. This jury-rigged connection has not helped. In an attempt to reduce the noise and stop complaining, Mr. Jeans then simply replaced a blanket in the unit. It did not improve. It did absolutely not improve the blanket. The blanket, what he did, he came in, took out one blanket, and put in another blanket.
All right, Mr. King, because we have your letter here.
You have my letter.
Yes.
I have one more paragraph.
Yes. No, we need to be fair with everybody on the 3 minutes. So we have your letter, and we have that complete. But I would like our town attorney to respond to you if you can wait there just 1 minute.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We often do get approached by neighbors who have problems between them regarding a number of different issues. Noise is one of those issues. Our jurisdiction regarding most of these issues is very, very limited. With regard to noise, we only have authority with regard to whether certain properties, for any reason, exceed general noise limitations. We can go out and take a look. I would seriously doubt that an air conditioner would probably reach the noise levels that are prohibited under our ordinances. What we can do in situations like this where neighbors can't get along is refer you to a county program to mediate disputes among neighbors, but otherwise situations such as this are civil issues between neighbors where the town doesn't have jurisdiction to get involved.
This is a felony. He lied to us. He's illegal.
What Mr. Cord is saying, Mr. Kane, is that it's a civil action. So if you choose to pursue that through a civil lawsuit, civil means, whatever, well, that's your choice. But the town can't intervene because the noise that's caused won't exceed our noise ordinances. So that was the important distinction I wanted him to make for you.
This to you, you have not lived for the last 2 years like my wife and I have lived with 18 people 7 days a week sometimes, working night and day in that house. It has been god-awful, ridiculous.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, Mr. Mayor, we would be happy to contact the 2 individuals involved and refer them to the county's neighborhood mediation program.
Thank you for doing that.
That's what I'd like.
Thank you. That's done. Thank you, Mr. King.
I'd like somebody to help me.
Thank you. We've heard and we're going to try and help. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
You betcha. All right, I've got one more card on Viva, Mr. Jonathan Knowles.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. It's been a while since I've brought anything up on this subject, but I thought I'd do that tonight. Very briefly, considering the statistics concerning dogs in our community, 12,500 households approximately, about 9,000 dogs. Once again, I'll say we are in fact the most ironically named town in the state of California. But I'll throw out just a little something to so that people watching, and of course you, as you think about things, I know many good things are happening on track for dogs in our community. It's very exciting. But I'll just throw out to you something that Campbell is doing. They just announced Wagon Wednesdays. Announcing Downtown Campbell's Wagon Wednesdays. Downtown Campbell is a dog-friendly town. Most of our shops welcome dogs, and all of our restaurants with outdoor patios are dog-friendly. With this in mind, we're starting Wagon Wednesdays. Come on down with your pet pooch, meet some new dog pals, all while strolling around and shopping and dining out in downtown Campbell. Wagon Wednesdays is Wednesday news every Wednesday in Campbell. This is from the Downtown Campbell Business Association. So just throw up there. I know we don't like to necessarily compare ourselves sometimes to Campbell, but I think we have to pay attention to something that's going on in these economic times. We should be doing everything we can to encourage people to be dining out and shopping in Los Gatos. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. All right, that ends the verbal communications portion. We're now on to public hearings, agenda item number 11, specifically abatement of hazardous vegetation. Mr. Capurso, will please make a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Todd Capurso, Director of Parks and Public Works, here for the first of two items related to hazardous vegetation. The first relates to brush and is more oriented toward fire prevention in the wildland-urban interface, and the second applies more to weeds and is more along the lines of public nuisance. Both programs are cooperatively managed between the town and various agencies in the county. For the brush program, we work closely with not only the county's fire department, but also with the county's Department of Agriculture. And in the weed program, we work strictly with the county's Department of Agriculture. And before getting into either of these items, I would like to introduce Mo Cumley from the County of Santa Clara, who is here to answer all the hard questions, if there are any. But the first item before you is the abatement of hazardous brush, which again applies to wildland-urban fire interface. And this is a program that is inspected by county fire, and for properties that don't comply with the regulations as defined by adopted by the town, but as defined by county fire, the work is done and then billed to the property owner. Our best information on this is that there were no properties in the town that fell under this program. So under the brush program, we did not have to abate any properties, and we're not looking to recoup any fees. So don't think we're going to hear anything. We haven't heard from any private property owners on this issue.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Nope. Seeing none. Anybody from the council? Nope. And are we handling these as separate issues?
Yes, we are.
We are. Okay, so council, I look for a motion.
I don't know. Well, question, if there were no properties, do we need to adopt it?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll move, we adopt the resolution as attachment 1, there is attachment 1 to item number 11.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Mr. Capurso, if you please continue, item number 2.
Let's see if we can beat that record on this one. The next item is the
Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the weed program, again, this is managed strictly by the town and the county's Department of Agriculture. Under this one, there were actually 29 properties abated, but we are not aware of any protests. I don't believe the county is aware either. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer, do you wish to say more? You sure? You good? All right, well, no callers from the public, so we turn to council. For a motion, Councilmember Spector.
All right, I move to adopt the resolution attachment 1 approving the commencement report attachment 2.
Second. Motion made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Cumley, thank you very much for being here this evening. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
You betcha. All right, we are now on to other business, which is extremely exciting. Other business. And Pam, is our assistant town manager, would you like to put some things out on display? Would you mind if we took 5 minutes while you did that? Would that be all right? All right, thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break while some items go out there, visual aids, so to speak. Welcome back, everybody. Back from our little 5-minute recess that allowed samples of what you're going to hear about in just a few minutes regarding the new library to be put on display at the table here. Hopefully the TV might be able to catch a shot of those. Also, three color pictures were put up behind me. I hope the camera can focus in on those. We have a view there of the inside from the second floor of the library, a view here from the outside up on the hills towards Pageant Ground, and here the front elevation of the library. Now I'll turn it over to Pamela Jacobs, our Assistant Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We are very pleased to share with the council and the community tonight the progress report on the new library design. We last came before you in January of this year, and at that time we presented the conceptual design for the new library. Since that time, there have been many more details evolved and developed for the library, and tonight the architect will be sharing with you the latest site plan, interior and exterior design, floor plan, and sample materials, as you mentioned. And we think that all of these together show a very strong illustration, visual illustration of what the new library is going to look and feel like. One aspect of the new library that I would like to highlight in my comments before I turn it over to the architect is the effort we're making to achieve LEED Silver certification with the new library. And that means that the new library will incorporate many features for energy savings and to reduce its carbon footprint. And we are confident that we are going to achieve LEED Silver, and I'll give you a little preview tonight that I believe that we may even be able to achieve LEED Gold. We do have the commitment for silver, and we are looking at incorporating as many features as possible to save as much energy as possible and the future costs associated with the library. Concurrent with the design development that you're going to hear about tonight, we are undertaking the environmental review, and we expect that will be completed in November of this year. That will be followed by the review by the Planning Commission in December, and we are targeting to bring it to the Council for final review in December or January. We will then hopefully put the project to bid next March and award in May or June, and we look forward to a groundbreaking in either June or July of 2010 and that wonderful grand opening in November of 2011. So we will now turn it over to Chris Knoll of Noll & Tam, who will walk us through the design details to reflect the design interior and exterior of the new library.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm Chris Knoll with Noll & Tam Architects. Very glad to be back here with you again. It's been a little while since we were here before the full council. And what we'd like to do is present an update on the design to you, give you a brief presentation, and then after adjournment, invite you to come down and browse the materials on the sample table here in front of you and talk about it. Quite a bit has happened since we last had a design presentation. We've been working very hard and very close coordination with the subcommittee and have made a lot of progress. We are now currently at the end of the design development phase, and after we finish this, we will go into the construction documents. So at this point, we would say that most of the serious and significant design decisions have been made, and this is what we will proceed forward with, and we'd like to show you where we are. The basic principles of the library have not changed. We are sort of still working with a warm and inviting feeling to this, working with the Civic Center, bringing in natural materials, and going for LEED Silver, if not Gold. And we are feeling rather confident that we will be able to achieve that and have a building that is very highly energy efficient. I'd like to start with the site plan. This has changed significantly since we saw you last. Main Street is up here just off the top of the slide. The existing Civic Center is over here, and the library is back here at the back of the site where we have shown it pretty much since December of last year. One of the major changes is that Fiesta Row and Villa Avenue now connect with a continuous curved street. So that would be a continuous connection. The fire department was very keen to have this, and it does provide kind of very good access. The parking lots in the front here are being kept pretty much the way they are, with just resurfacing, but the rear part of the parking lot has been reconfigured to keep the same amount of parking, but to give us more plaza area in front of the library here. In addition, we have a small parking lot across the street here and another one back here behind the library. The library entrance is right here. It has a plaza directly in front of it, and then a larger plaza down below here, a couple of feet below, that connects up to the same level as the Civic Center. So you'll be able to sort of come across and up a slight inclined ramp and into the entrance here.
Some of our sustainable features are we have bioswales here and here to take the surface runoff, both from the building roof and from the paved areas that we're doing. Our scope of work extends back here onto the hillside, and we are going to do a bit of grading back here and mitigation of some of the trees that need to be removed to accommodate the new library. There's a small courtyard tucked behind that you'll see on the floor plan in a minute. Into the hillside, the service entrance is over here. And that's probably the main gist of the site plan. This is a rendering of the front face of the building facing the plaza and facing Main Street. You can see that as we started out, we wanted a very transparent building, and we think we have managed to achieve that. The whole upper story of the building is almost all glass on this north face. It's going to allow a lot of light into the building. The main entrance is right here. It has a transparent glass canopy above it. The children's area is down in this area on the lower right. This is a staff area below. The adult areas are up here on the second floor, a technology center behind that, and then there's our teen center in here with this great sort of interesting pop-out of the building where the teens will sort of be out there kind of on display. We'll keep a good eye on them from out here. The material on this, or something I want to point out to you one by one, the main cladding of the building is a ceramic porcelain tile. We considered the tile and stone for this material. We found the material in porcelain tile, which is on the table right over there in those two large pieces. It's a very high performance material. It's a very economical material. It has a lot of variation to it, so it will sort of have the feeling of stone, but it will be quite graffiti resistant and weather resistant and give us a really durable long life finish. And we feel like it's going to give us sort of the qualities of stone and the durability of a ceramic porcelain material. The brownish areas on here is a wood product. It's a wood panel that is withstand the exterior environment very well. So it's going to feel very much like a sort of a wood panel here. There's another portion of it directly over the front entrance. There are bits of it sort of in the window enclosures around as you go around the building. So it's going to be sort of this sort of stone-like material and a lot of wood in sort of large pieces. It's going to be a sort of a deep, rich color that we feel is going to complement. You can see the Civic Center building back here in that brick color. It's going to complement that brick color very well. And then the rest of this is an aluminum window wall system. It's going to be sort of painted a warm metallic color, and then we'll have transparent glass, not heavily shaded glass, but very transparent, particularly on the north side where we don't have solar control. The windows will have some sort of interesting breakups in the teen and the children's areas and sort of more standard breakup. There will be sort of some translucent panels above and below that will sort of let light in and out, but not vision. Working our way around to the back side of the building, you can see the south elevation and the west elevation. Now, there gets a lot of sun on these two elevations, and so we've put a lot of effort into controlling the sun with louvers on all the windows so that we can shade the windows from the outside before the sun ever hits the glass and brings that heat into the building. This is part of our energy conservation strategy. So this is the history collection area, which has a glass bay that pops out with louvers on all three sides. This is the courtyard in the back of the building. It has its own glass canopy. These people are sort of sitting right on the edge of Pageant Park, gazing over the sort of the pastoral nature of the backside of the building. This is the end of the long clerestory window at the top, again, sort of heavily shaded because west sun is difficult to control. This elevation is, and so we've got that very well controlled. Up here you can see the clerestory windows that go all the way down the center of the building and bring in the light, and then up above that is a shading canopy that we're using photovoltaic cells on that canopy so we can sort of have a demonstration as well as achieve the solar shading. And again, the same materials, the porcelain tile, the wood panels, the aluminum windows, all across the back. And this is the interior. This is the main lobby. The front door is just downstairs below there. It has the grand stairway that leads you up above. Down the whole center line of the building is this clerestory with windows on the south and the north. We have a
perforated wood acoustical ceiling up there, so we have the feeling of wood, but we have the performance of an acoustical ceiling. Wood paneling down below. We have two different colors of wood in here, so you'll see in a moment, sort of a darker wood, more like a cherry color, and then sort of a maple birch color at the top, because we want the reflectivity of that for our lighting. We want to bring as much natural light into this as possible. Other things would be sort of clear glass balustrades to, again, allow the light through. You can see out the end, that west-facing bay, and how transparent that would be, but also shaded from the sun. The side bays have white acoustical ceilings. You're getting a sense of the bookshelves. This here is a sort of a glass wall between the entry hall and then the spaces beyond. That's one of our art opportunity projects that we'll either have an artist floor or we'll do something for it ourselves. This is the service desk at the top of the stairs on the on the upper floor, and the children's desk down below, and the computers and sort of self-check stations down below here. This is the floor plan of the library. On the first floor, the front doors are right here. We have a cafe out in the corner back here. We're thinking of something like a coffee cart there. Our reserve books are the Friends books are in the back over here, so that the Friends sales will happen in this point. We have our reserves and our new book collections in here and in these areas. Our main service desk is right here. So it's there's a lot of space in this area, and there's a lot of display. So as you first come in the door, you're seeing a lot of books, a lot of materials, things to pick up and go. The children's area is right down here with their service desk, a glass partition, and beyond that is a story time area. The toddlers and picture books up above, the other collections down below. And then restrooms for the children in here. Directly ahead as you come through the door is our periodicals. This is a lovely room. I'll show you a picture in a moment. It has views out into this courtyard garden in the back, nestled into the hillside with full glass wall, comfortable seating, a small fireplace, and then wooden bookshelves lining all sides of the room. And that's our material from the outside coming in. These areas are the staff areas. The book drop is right here. The staff entrance is right there. The staff workrooms are down here, including the break room, and a conference room here that's shared both by the public and by the staff. Again, 2 public restrooms right off of the lobby here, and a couple of staff restrooms back here. I'll give you a very quick tour. Second floor, you come up to the top of the stairs here, and you have a service desk that points you. This whole area here is where that clear store, that taller portion of the ceiling is that brings in the light. So you have a lot of light coming in from the windows on the south side, a lot of light from the windows on the north side, and a lot of light in the center. We're sort of hoping we never have to turn the lights on in the building. But if in any case, we'll have lighting control systems that will turn them off for you if you don't need them. Main reading area down the middle here, reading tables and computers with a lounge area in the bay that looks out over Patchen Park at the end. Our history collection down here with a workroom, but some sort of work tables and computers and access to those collections and locked file cabinets here. A lounge area here looking out over the garden and the hillside in the back. A technology lab up at the front. This is a room that can be closed off and people can work on computers, and we have classes in there and you can do that. Our adult fiction area is over here with some airline seating. Our media collections are going to be in here in special displays. And then we have our lovely teen area in the front here. That bay that pops out with some lounge seating, real lounge seating in here, some collections around here, computers, real computers, and sort of banquette-like seating here, plus a small, so this is a large group study room, and we have another group study room down here. So there are lots of places to sort of get away from the noise. This will be the noisier part of the library over here, and this will be the quieter part of the library over here. But it's long enough and the acoustics are separate enough, I think it'll be habitable for both. And then finally, the restrooms, main restrooms are up here on this point. Sections of the building, coming in the front door here into the main entrance hall. You can see how tall that is. On the second floor, it's with the clerestory windows up above. The longitudinal section from the bay at the west end through that, down the stairs, and then the staff areas and the other service areas up above. Again, so I'm walking around this. This is just the computer renderings and a little sharper than some of the others. You can see the glass canopy. It's a very sort of light glass canopy over the front door that keeps the rain off of you but lets the light in. It has this large wood panel up above it with these tall, narrow windows that go into the technology center. And then otherwise quite a lot of transparency in this upper floor. View from the opposite direction, seeing this, the northwest corner of the building. The children's area again here, kind of interesting sort of division of the windows, and inside we sort of have seating and tables and casework that sort of goes along with that. Smaller windows at the ends, but always sort of bringing light into the building from those end panels as well. And you can kind of see the teen area popping out over here, continuing around the building, kind of like the rendering that you saw a moment ago, and then down to the southeast corner of the building. These are the staff entrance doors over here and service areas here, mechanical spaces up above. But again, on the upper floors and in the staff areas, still having windows at the east end of the building, again, heavily shaded against the sun. A couple of interior perspectives. Just standing at the bottom of the stairs as you come in, the stairs sort of have a curvy nature to them, wrapping up above. This is that art glass wall that we're thinking of. You can see the periodicals room beyond, the auditories up above, and this is the entrance to the children's. We have an interesting ceiling system that we're having in here, which is a sort of a translucent fabric, stretched fabric material that's going to go down the center of that space, which is going to be quite interesting. Looking through that glass panel to the bay window beyond toward Pageant Park. This is the periodicals area. It's a little sort of cold and unfinished in terms of the rendering, but you can see lounge seating around the fireplace. The porcelain tile material comes in a number of places from the outside to the inside, so bringing that material in, but it's softened by wooden bookcases and wooden comfortable furniture. Upstairs, you can see the sort of steel structure of the building that's exposed, but it has lots of wood around it, the wood ceiling, and the clear stories.
Excuse me, Mr. Moore, can you go back one? Yeah. When you were describing the steel, just so there's not a misperception, would you please tell how the steel is treated?
It's painted.
Okay, so there wasn't the inserts?
Oh, there are wood inserts. I'm trying to remember exactly the details.
The eye-blooms, correct?
Right. Yeah, the wood flanges, we've got some wood panels in there, so it's not just straight steel.
It doesn't look like steel. Thank you.
And that allows us to bring electrical and telecommunications up through those raceways. Let's have a look at that. Yep. Sorry, I'm moving really fast.
It's all right, we're doing good.
And the teen area, showing the bay that looks out toward the front of the building, some lounge seating in here and back here, computers, bookshelves, and a lot of kind of fun materials in here. So here are the materials. They are similar to the ones that are on the table here. And projectors and computer monitors always show everything a little differently, so the colors shift a little bit. But this is the exterior. We have the wood panel on the outside, which will probably be a bit darker and redder than this. The stone of the terrace, we have a stone down in the upper terrace just outside the front door that runs into the main lobby. The porcelain ceramic tile on the main walls, and you can see the variations in it. Glass and aluminum finishes, and then sort of bold landscape features that will be all around the building. In the interior, in the main sort of auditories, we have more of a sort of medium-colored cherry wood and a lighter wood for the ceiling areas and areas we need to bounce the light off on. Again, we have the stone and the porcelain tile coming into the building, and then fabrics and carpets, and in those translucent sort of panel areas, we'll be bringing materials that bring the natural forms. Let's come back to that original point, bringing natural materials into the building. We're sort of trying to do that with forms and colors and literally, things that are embedded in these acrylic panels. Some examples, some photographs of other installations that are similar to this. You can see how the wood ceiling would be like here. Here's another example of the wood ceiling with a painted steel structure, and this is the Alameda Library. Wood paneling on our stairway with a sort of clear railing but wood down below. And then this is a wall, sort of similar to that wall that we have going up, which has some artwork on glazing. In the children's area, the colors are going to be sort of bright, the forms are going to be cheerful. This is an example of one type of installation. Each of these is different and unique, and we're going to find a solution that kind of is right for the space here, but you can sort of see these sort of fabric panels. They can be lit from below, they can be lit from above, depending upon the material you use. Bringing in sort of bright colors for the surfaces and furniture that will have sort of interesting forms for the children to bounce around on. Again, other ways of using furniture in the room and trying to find interesting things that will make the kids feel like they're going to be a very fun place and want to come here.
In the teen area, it's going to be, sort of interesting things as well. We have some surfaces that we're looking at having a textured, sort of it's a sculpted wood panel. That would be an interesting thing. Or using treatments to glazing materials to bring sort of letters and patterns and fun, exciting, sort of energetic things to the teen area. Again, we will have wood, both the light and the medium-toned woods, sort of vibrant fabrics, and interesting furniture. Again, these are some examples of other teen areas that sort of have that feeling of this, kids hanging out together in their lounge chairs. This is a library we did that's got some interesting forms, and some of the things you see there might, come into this one, and just sort of showing how sort of energetic and vibrant these spaces can be. So that's my presentation. I'm very happy to take any questions. And then
thank you, Mr. Mayor. We look to council,
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Mr. Corbett.
Just want to remind council that we have to sit in the zoning approval process regarding the same building. So I'm going to very strongly suggest that we reserve any comments regarding the building until that time. So nobody will be able to accuse you of prejudging this structure until the public hearing opportunity arises.
Thank you. It looks like we could hold a lot of books. Okay. Thank you. Our attorney has given us the counseling that he's famous for. Council, any questions of Mr. Knoll at this time within the guidelines allowed to us? Councilman Brzezinski.
This is a clarification question, and the attorney will stop us in mid-sentence. I'm sure if there's any issues arise. Not that we would ever think of pre-approving anything. Mr. Knoll, in terms of the floor plan for the second story, if you can go to that slide just for a sec. This is the retrospective on the entire library. That's it. Could you point out in the teen area where the library supervision taking place? There's one service desk on this floor right here. So from a fixed point of view, they can see all the way across pretty much to every part of this area except possibly some dark corners over here that might be out of our field of view. All of these walls are glass. Okay. Clear as we can make them. Thank you. I just needed to point that out because that was one of the major issues raised to us when we did some library visits from the librarians themselves. So you need the adult supervision on that particular section very specifically. And from your perspective, it's a comfortable distance so the observation can take place without being intrusive, I assume. Yes, I pay a lot of attention to this kind of a thing because I'm quite concerned about not having any places that can't be supervised. So in addition to being able to see it from that desk, which I do feel comfortable about, I imagine the staff is going to be up and on their feet quite a bit in this library because we try to get them up out of their desks. Their desks are getting smaller and their sneakers are getting busier. Thank you. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the external materials, we have tiles and we have wood. I would assume that you either have the tiles exemplars here on the table. Would it be possible for you to just go over and point at it or lift it?
These are the porcelain tiles. Thank you.
And they come in a variety of
microphone. We have a variety, sort of a variation in the tones in the pattern that we get. So it's not too uniform. And we can kind of get a sense on that thing about the range that we're looking for. We try to get as much of a range as we can, so it sort of has a feeling of a natural stone.
And the wood? Do you have an exemplar up there?
Yes, these are wood samples of that particular material. All right, thank you. So it depends on which exact material we actually use. Some are natural wood veneers and some are printed wood veneers, but they look very natural and they have a very long guarantee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. We have 2 cards from the public. We'll call up Citizen Ray first. This is agenda item number 13, other business, which is a progress report of the new library.
Ladies and gentlemen, I continue to be so disappointed as this process goes along. And those of you who theoretically are supposed to be leading this and giving us the truth and all the information so we, the people, can make up our mind. I mean, it's called American democracy. And yet, every time this is on the agenda, the same nonsense from Mr. Wasserman really comes out. He describes this project as an $18 million project. That's a lie. The cost is estimated to be $18 million. In reality, it's going to be a hell of a lot more than that. But what he is lying about and leaving out and misrepresenting is the fact that to finance this thing with RDA financing, it will cost approximately, at today's interest rates, the same figure as the construction cost. So what you have to do to get the true cost, without lies, without fraud, without all your lying, cheating, and stealing, is to talk about the library as in $36 million to $40 million, maybe $45 million. Okay? And there's one of you, to my abject disappointment, isn't one of you that is calling the truth, spelling it out. So it's the gang of five, lying, cheating, and stealing on the library. And you want to go to the grand jury? You'll wait and see. Just like you did the Glickman. You'll wait and see. Oh, that makes me feel good. Woo!
Thank you very much. Okay. Jonathan Knowles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm personally very excited about this. This is wonderful news. As you know, I talk to a lot of people around town about what's going on around town, and every single person I'm talking to, almost every single person, there's one or two maybe that aren't, are very excited about the fact that we are proceeding with our new library. People who understand that libraries are an essential part of communities, that we are making an incredible investment into the future of our community. I'm happy to say that in full disclosure, I'm part of the campaign committee for Friends of the Library, working to continue some of the work that needs to be done on this, and very excited to just give a brief report on some of the other community leaders who have signed up to serve on that advisory committee. People such as Larry Arzi and David Stonecipher, and Peggy Fleming, and Milky Groves, and Terry Hope, and Valerie and John Hopkins, and Marge Rice, and Joanne Rogers, and Randy Attaway. And tonight I spoke with Carl Gardino, who was just up here addressing you earlier, and he agreed that this is an important investment in our community, and he agreed to serve on that board as well. So very exciting times that we're moving ahead with this, and I think that you can look forward to hearing some good reports from us as we try to help realize this important dream. And then just on that note, I'd like to say that as chairman of the board of Los Gatos Music and Arts, we're absolutely committed to all the arts, music, performing, literary, and to that end, we've invited Friends of the Library to have these renderings on display at all of the remaining Jazz on the Plaza concerts in the booth that we're going to set up for them should the public want to come out and just get a closer look at some of the things that are being suggested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. That concludes our public portion of item number 13, and I'll look to council for questions or comments. This was just a presentation, just an update, if you will. I did want to mention just a couple of things that was mentioned earlier as far as budgets and prices and what things cost and don't cost. we estimate the cost of something, and that's what we call the price for it. When you buy a home or you buy a car or something else, whether you pay cash for it or finance it, the cost you paid is the cost you paid. What's been very nice is two of our most recent projects. One was the intersection, I believe, of University Avenue and Blossom Hill, where we estimated it out, but because one of the advantages of the recession is contractors are sharpening their pencils and cutting their profits, and the estimate that we had for that intersection and the actual price that came in, the price was considerably lower, and the town of Los Gatos saved money again. The police operations building, which is expected to open at the end of October, was also done several $100,000 less than originally anticipated. And it's our hope that should this council approve the zoning change, the other things that Mr. Korb referred to, and approve the library, et cetera, then when it ultimately goes out to bid, that the price will even be less than what our budget is. And we thank the Friends of the Library for their fundraising efforts to help, bless you, help offset any costs or help to enhance what is finally built. This is a very, very exciting day, and I understand the pictures on the screen were available to our viewers by direct feed, so I hope the clarity was acceptable. And I think that's about it. Council, any other questions? Seeing none, that item's over, and we're going to adjourn the meeting.